Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla, let's go over the market and figure out what happened today and what we can expect moving into next week. So with that being said and done, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, my membership section is live. That link is down below. For just $3 a month, you get access to my intraday thoughts, posts, updates, technical analysis, essentially what I talk about in this video, but live as I'm seeing it right then and there throughout every single trading day. So it's, real time information, if you will, as opposed to, delayed or whatnot. And sometimes other stuff as well and other charts as well. One of which was a square I was sharing with my members. I don't know where that chart is, but it's somewhere. Anyway, yeah, again, link below in the description. Check it out if you want, but this is not financial advice. I can't remember if I said that, but yeah, jumping into a Tesla closing the day actually up a nice, beautiful 3% after yesterday's pretty catastrophic red candle, massive reversal candle. We did actually drop even lower today. We bounced at a pretty decent spot. It's actually a spot that I told my members that has a very good chance of being potentially the bottom right here. This 230s range we are in is a candidate from the bottom, even if short term, right? We obviously bounced off of that. I unfortunately couldn't capitalize on it as much as I would like to because I had a bunch of cash you could put sitting in the 230s and at 240. So I'm like, well, if I just buy shares here, I'm at the risk of buying too many shares if my cash secured puts also come in. So I ended up just not really buying shares there as much as I wanted to. Let's just be honest. I'll be completely honest with you. But with that being said, my cash secured puts did end out of the money. So those are essentially quote unquote free money. So I guess there's that. So that's, it's not a full L, but just not as big of a W as I would have liked to see. But nonetheless, we did bounce off of this pretty important area, right? This massive area that we had, of course, a lot of support all the way back here, right? Pretty much around this low 230s range, came right back into it, found some support here as well. And so far, so good. Now, there's a few things here. Personally, again, just make it very clear. If we follow this rough trend right here, you can see, this is the week we just finished, actually, this top one right here, which kind of makes sense, right? Obviously not including this little past, day and a half, we'll say, of redness, if you will, technically including today, if you count it from yesterday's high. We did make a fresh high all the way up here, which is kind of what this mentioned that it would do as well this week. We would go a little bit higher and peak our head above the previous highs, and that's exactly what we did, right? Anyway, so point is, I personally expect next week to be a little bit sideways, if not red, honestly. And the reason for that is pretty simple, right? This is obviously one of them, but I personally believe this is just a dead cat bounce right now, right? I believe this is a dead cat bounce. So if you go to the 1 hour chart, we bring that up from over here. If you go from this up here to all the way down here where we did bounce from, right? You can see we came up pretty much almost exactly and perfectly to that 0.5 Fibonacci level, sitting at about 252, came up there almost perfectly. And we did get rejection so far. Now, obviously not a major rejection, but so far getting some, issues and having problems actually moving past that. So, it's a little bit concerning, to say the least, right? That's definitely a little bit concerning, right? So that's, one sign, right? So if this is a dead cat bounce, this is pretty much the spot to reject that and make our way back down. At the very least, in my opinion, back down to this exact same level we already bounced from, which is about this, 232, we'll say, ish level, if not lower, honestly, if not even lower than that, which I think is a real possibility. I'll discuss where I think that might be. My weekly chart's messed up. I don't know if anyone else's trading views messed up, but it's just having a massive gap here. The previous week's candle is just missing it or something. I don't know what's going on with it. Like, for instance, if you compare it to, I don't have TrendSpider open. If you compare it to TrendSpider, for instance, right? This is what it's supposed to look like, obviously, with this weekly candle from last week. Don't have that weekly candle there. I don't know where it went. It just disappeared. But anyways, today's move to the downside also, you can argue, was actually that retest for this trend line, right? We came down almost perfectly on the linear chart, retested at about 230, and so far, obviously, getting a bit of a bounce. Now, obviously, there is a chance that, we come back down and retest it one more time. I mean, it is a pretty massive, multi-year trend line, so getting multiple retests on it, well, it just wouldn't surprise me, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So, that's another reason, but also, this is pretty interesting. Check this out. So if I go to the daily chart, and if I go back to June of, right here, so this is June of last year, right? Obviously also had a massive rally the same way, of course, if I go back to the daily chart, let's just say here, so we can kind of compare more quickly, right? Massive rally just now. June, also massive rally. Topped out a little bit here, had a bearish engulfing. The day after the bearish engulfing, we had a nice little, not little, but a decent bounce right at the major support area that it has bounced off of before, pretty much the exact same way we did pretty much over here. It looks almost identical, right? And it obviously, the candle did close roughly within the range of yesterday's red candle, which is exactly what happened here. What happened the next day was, it was kind of a nothing burger day, and then we did go a little bit lower. And this is kind of the move I expect moving into next week, especially considering Tuesdays are usually not always the best for Tesla. This candle right here, if we get something of the sort, would be a Tuesday, right? And I think from there, we go a little bit lower. I think we come down to potentially, breaching into the 220s, like maybe 225. And I think from there, maybe get some bear traps set up, get another retest of that multi-year trend line breakout and, retest on that as well, once again. And I think from there, we can get a beautiful bounce. And I think we start making our way a little bit higher, right? So that's kind of what I'm personally projecting right now, right? Now, obviously, whether or not, we do this little retest and we just blast off to all-time highs, I mean, that's still a major question. I don't know if I would say that just yet, but, this would also potentially on the 1 hour chart, for instance, start setting up what could be a nice little bull flag, right? You can argue it would look something like this. Again, just a rough example, of course, right? You can, zoom in a little bit here, right? You can argue that, this looks like this and this will look something like this, right? Lines up pretty well, actually, surprisingly. Look at this. Beautiful, beautiful lineup here. Let me go ahead and copy paste this. Right? It could look something like this. Again, just a super rough example, but you get a one touch point up here, 2 touch point here, 3 touch point here, come back down for the 4th touch point down here somewhere, and then we rocket back up, right? That could be a potential candidate for sometime next week, right? And it could be a massive bear trap, panic sell some people, right? Get a bear trap into a bull trap into a bear trap, and then we rally. That could be pretty insane. That's kind of what I'm roughly projecting right now. Obviously, that's like very specific projection. I don't know if it'll play out exactly like that or maybe nothing like that at all. No one knows for sure. But regardless of how it decides to play out, this candle to me today, and this rally today, to me at least, is still definitely a candidate for a dead cat bounce, right? You can see the stochastic has officially crossed bearish, right? That's, just showing momentum is definitely not there anymore. The momentum has definitely dried up, at least in my opinion. When I see stochastic crossover like this, stochastic to me just essentially shows momentum, right? And a bearish cross is just, well, momentum is obviously slowed down, if not more or less entirely faded. So that's, I don't like to see a bearish MACD stochastic crosses. I'm not a fan of that, right? The MACD is well extended still from the red line on the daily. So essentially the MACD coming back down to the red line to kind of retest it, if you will, because they've never really did that well yet, would be another potential confluence. If we do make our way back lower a little bit into the 220s, for instance, or something like that, that is a possibility. Another way to look at it is, well, if we go from potentially what, you can argue is the swing low to that swing high. Now, you can make some arguments. Is the swing low all the way down here and then you go from here, right? Or is the swing low all the way up here? I don't know. It doesn't really matter too much. The idea is just to get a rough depiction, right? And the rough depiction to me tells me the fact that if this is roughly the swing low to up here, right? So far today we bounced roughly off that 0.32 Fibonacci, which is about, again, that 231, 232-ish range. But the 0.5 and the 0.618 level, assuming this is the way you want to do your Fibonacci, sitting at 220 and 207-ish respectively. I don't know if it'll go to 207. It's not impossible. I wouldn't bet on it. And if it does, I expect it to be a massive bear trap. And I expect the weekly candle, I expect us to push pretty aggressively from it and to ultimately still close the weekly candle on the linear chart back above the trend line into a potentially nice looking hammer weekly candle. That is something I would expect if we go all the way down to 207. I personally don't think we will, but I'll be prepared for it in case we do. But I would not be surprised to come down into the 220s and maybe even slightly over dip back to the 0.5 Fibonacci, sitting at around 220 right now. So those are the kind of levels I'm looking at right now moving forward. Now, again, I want to make it clear, I could be very wrong. We could just completely rip from here and go up even higher. That is a possibility. Of course, I do have my smaller account shares that are just, I'm pretty much just holding. So if it does happen, I'm making money on it, but I am underweight at the moment, right? I am definitely a little bit on the underweight side, and I would be adding pretty aggressively if we do come down to about 220-ish. Just my current projection, especially with, again, still being technically overbought, but, stochastic is, starting to lose momentum here. So it's just, I'm not super convinced by this rally, at least as of right now, especially when you combine, just how similar it looked to, this little situation we found ourselves back here, which is just such a similar situation. And again, history doesn't, it's not duplicated. It's not the exact same, but it often rhymes. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a move like this. And then we do get a move upwards like this as well, as we go up even higher, kind of like what we did right over here. So that's my general projection, if you will, for Tesla moving into, the next couple of weeks, really, right? And especially next week that I just shared. So that's kind of the main way I'm looking at it moving forward. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down below if you enjoyed this kind of video. I'm not sure if I'm forgetting anything. I mean, the weekly candle, I guess, is something worth mentioning, even though the last week's candle is weird. So we'll take a look at it here because Trading View is being a little bit weird about it. But a massive doji, right? This weekly candle is, of course, a massive doji, right? Which just shows indecision, right? But, you can also argue the fact that when you get these kind of doji candles, well, you usually have them as a potential reversal candle as well, right? Not always, but that does kind of give, raise some eyebrows to make you kind of wonder, okay, this could be a bit of a reversal, right? We have the TW pivot here showing that, we're pretty overextended even on the weekly time frame. So, you can see the daily was really overextended. Now it's kind of cooled off, so that's not too shabby, but, weekly is still showing us, a little bit overheated here. So, wouldn't be surprised if next week's a bit of a cool off week. Again, headed a little bit lower potentially. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see 220 personally. Could be wrong, of course, but wouldn't be surprised to see it. Kind of expecting it personally. But yeah, so again, doji candle on the weekly candle. Also, we did actually close below last week's closure, so that is a bit of a weakening sign as well, right? If we close above last week's weekly candle, which is about 250, we'll say, right, just above 250, about 251, we'll say, roughly, give or take, somewhere around there. That would have been a bit more, reassurance for the bulls. But the fact that stochastic is, crossing bearish, the fact that we have a doji, the fact that, that example that I had back in June, the fact that, we have a closure below last week's candle, are all signs to me that, are telling me that, some cool off is, kind of ready to go, right? A little bit of a cool off, a little bit of a relaxing here potentially for Tesla next week. And that's just kind of what I'm expecting. So again, we'll see what happens. We'll see how it goes, right? The RSI is just way far ahead, way overextended, right? Coming back down a little bit as well wouldn't shock me, back down to about 56, for instance, which probably will be what happens if we do come down to about 220s ish. But yeah, that's just kind of what I think. That's what I'm projecting. Obviously, again, could be wrong, could be completely wrong. But that's just what I think. That's what I'm expecting. And we'll see how that plays out. Tesla with the highest call flow today, confirmed bullish flow. Only 10 million though, so nothing too crazy, right? A lot of mixed flow, definitely a lot of calls though. But I'd assume a lot of them got, profit taken, right? I mean, for instance, here you can see a lot of calls come in for next week, for instance. So there is still some call momentum for next week. I'm not going to deny that. There is definitely some momentum for calls for next week. But, will that be enough to push Tesla up? Is it enough momentum, or is it maybe just a reason for market makers to potentially just suppress the price? And have a lot of calls not really going to money, and a lot of money being lost essentially on that side, right? So I don't know, we'll see, but that's just kind of what I'm seeing, and that's kind of what I'm expecting. So let me know what you think down below as per usual, ladies and gentlemen. But if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.